Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna rant about The Good Place for a little bit, because it's been on my mind. I'm gonna let YouTube decide if it's a interesting topic. Comment something below, something about like generative AI or the Hawk Tuah girl. I don't care. That's kind of all YouTube cares about these days. But yeah, The Good Place. I know spoilers for season one, and I guess the entire premise of The Good Place. I know it came out in like what 2016, um, which makes me feel very old. But there will be spoilers discussed here in this video. So the end of season one has been talked about endlessly. It's a great twist. Um, it gets really into the like philosophies, like what is an ethical person, and how do they function. But I think the topic that I miss in the most in the discourse is how the ending of The Good Place is not just about being a good person. I think it's an allegory. I think it is a very specific message that is probably very resonant with a lot of people, and I haven't really seen that discussed, and I think that gets kind of lost. So I want to talk about it. The ending of The Good Place, for those who have not watched it and do not care, is Eleanor Shellstrop realizing that the reality that she has been living in, along with several other people, sorry, I am being cat attacked, is all artificial. Like, this is a construct that Michael has constructed for all of them so that they can all torture each other. And it's very smart and it works because they absolutely hate each other and they're all miserable. And it's that realization moment of like, this sucks. Like, we hate this. Like, there is no good place. Is Eleanor realizing like, oh wait, we're in the bad place. Like, this is the bad place. Like, we're being tortured, and I don't think that conversations about ethics and like being hypothetically a good person, but I don't think it gets to the very grounded realization that essentially we are in the bad place. Is that realization is everything is intentionally designed to be problematic and bad, and I kind of want to talk about that because my feelings on that are right now are very strong. Gestures wildly and everything. Um, but I feel like the realization is that not only is the way that we live our lives and the way that we conceptualize the reality that we live in intentionally designed to torment us, this is the bad place. I think we have this real thought and thinking of that we are secretly in the that we are in the good place, that we secretly don't deserve to be here, and that we are part of, for one reason or another, part of a protected or privileged class. So whether we are like non-disabled, white, cisgender, we feel that we have certain protections from different discriminations that other people have, and we have to defend that like position in this protected class, or there will be consequences for us in the future. And the way that we do that is hurting others who are also in that same feeling, right? For whatever reason or another. Like, this conversation about privilege is like everybody has their own protections that they see. Whether like queer people have a privilege of like hiding their discrimination or like the characteristics that heteronormative society puts on us, or like whatever else. Like, black queer people experience a like disproportionate effect of both homophobia and racism for various reasons that I'm not going to get into because hello, I'm this color. Like, I'm not going to tell people how like black queer people feel, but I'm also very aware of the systems that are in place that protect both black and queer people, even though we are disadvantaged in our society as individuals because we are protected in one way or we find ways to survive. And the realization of we are in the bad place is not we are all equally being discriminated against. It is that we are actively being part of the system that discriminates against others. So we are poised to be Eleanor Shellstrop because Eleanor is presented as our primary character, as the protagonist of this story. But we're not. But we're also Chidi, and we're also Hani, and we're also his name Jason. Um, and the way that we act and function is not being Eleanor and secretly being one of the good ones who like figures it out. It's that we're all these people, and also Michael, um, who are creating the bad place. Like that is the intent of being in this bad place, is being all of these people and tormenting each other all the time for no particularly good reason. So the thing that sparks this is that Reddit story you saw on Smosh of like the dude who claimed that he was going on a like gaycation and was like chronically lying to his wife about just stuff. Like he's going on this vacation to Greece because it doesn't count. And I kind of want to explain the thought process here and what this has to do with The Good Place. So the idea behind this is that this man, whatever he's got going on, may or may not actually like be queer. The problem is that he's got stuff going on, and he has working on in his reality on a couple of assumptions. The first is that queerness is inherently feminine, and that's not necessarily the case. So in our sort of like 2000s understanding of gender, we have four genders, right? We have men, women, gay men, and gay women, and they exist on some sort of binary or like quaternary. I don't know what a 4-point like spectrum is, but you fit into one of these very discrete categories, and we do this in liberal thought, in liberal thinking, is we create categories that people fall into because it's easier. It's a way that we can describe ourselves and others to ourselves and others. It's a label that we use as a form of communication. And the assertion that sprung up in the early 2000s and persists to this day is that queer men are inherently feminine, and also being very feminine is humiliating. And I think this dude has like he has a very normal like of humiliation, and he just does not, or like feminization, and he does not know how to process any of it. And so the logic that I think that he had been given was that by being queer made him more feminine and therefore was humiliating. And we see this all the time. Like if you talk to a dominatrix, and the people that are asking for like ABDL and like baby content, like, is mostly very powerful men who, for the first time in their lives, are like, oh, I can just give up control to this other person, and that's like transgressive. But it is also part of who I am, and who I like. There is an inherent need for me to like have other people take care of me that they don't really get in their lives because they have asked, like they have not worthy of anybody else stepping in or being part of a community and having someone else take control for a little while. They also don't have that like thing that we all do of understanding that we're different people to different people in different circumstances. So if they are feminine or like any kind of like gender non-conforming, therefore it extends to their entire existence and their entire understanding of themselves, which is not necessarily the case. Technically, this man might not be gay. He could be any flavor of fruit that he wants to be. But he might just be working on this faulty assumption that this like femininity is going to label him in the society that he actively participates in as gay. And by being gay, it means that he is feminine, and by being feminine, it means that he is humiliated. because he is something unnatural in his eyes, and that he is no longer of the protected class, which means that he is going to be ejected from this protected class into a society that he does not have any experience with. So he's going to have to essentially start all over again. And he doesn't want to do that because he's kind of afraid. The problem with that is other than just operating on really faulty assumptions, is also the misunderstanding of himself in this society that he functions in. So in this story, he's lying to this wife who dearly is devoted to him. He has several kids. He works a very well. He's going on a vacation in Greece. Like, he has money and he has resources that he's not going to, like, the UK government is not going to show up at his door and just, like, arrest him and, like, take all his money and all this stuff that I think he's worked up this complex about over, like, his lifetime, and just got stuck in this very, like, Will and Grace understanding of, like, how gay men act intuitively. I think it's because of, like, weird gender essentialism nonsense, but that's really common in both the UK and the United States at the moment. What does this have to do with A Good Place? So, Eleanor, we get only Eleanor's perspective, but we do get, like, the insight into Jahani and Jason and Chidi's life of understanding, like, they're hiding this too. They all know, maybe not Jason. Jason doesn't really know things, but everybody is aware of how they're not really supposed to be here, even though they are in the, like, good place. They're in this protected environment where they get everything they want. They get, like, a house of their dreams. They go to parties. They're not in a pit of spiders constantly being, like, called nasty things. Like, as far as they are concerned, they are aware that they're at that time period. It gets kind of weird because there's some, like, weird metaphysics going on, but they're aware that there are other people being tortured. They're under the impression that they should also be tortured. They're not questioning any of this. They're just silently hiding in this protected environment as part of this protected class because they're one of the good ones. And I think it's people realizing for the first time that they are not part of a protected class, because there is no protected class. The Good Place exists in this environment, but it's not particularly good. If you've seen season 4, you understand. But this is the moment of, like, the first stage is this sort of, like, woke stage, is, like, being aware that there is a system and that there are people that are, like, advantaged more than others, but not questioning it. Not going, like, okay, so what do we do about that? Like, we have to continue to work in the system that we currently work in. We don't have power over it, so we're just going to hide. And then the second stage is this radicalization, is this moment of, like, oh, this is the bad place. Like, we're not part of a protected class, we're also disadvantaged. And it's their first realization of, like, oh, all of this hiding, all this work that we've put in has been totally meaningless because Michael has watched every second of it. It has been part of this institution. It's been part of this, like, intended functionality of this space, and what has been created. And Eleanor's realization is that moment of, oh, it's not about me. It's not about, like, I'm not secretly one of the bad ones. It's, I was put here outside of my own power. Why that resonates so well with people is because we're all on the cusp of that, like, constantly. Like, I know we joke about it, like, oh, this is the bad place. But, like, yes, we are in the bad place. We are all in the bad place together. And there are Michaels. I think another weakness of, like, season 2 onward, spoilers for season 2 onward also, I guess, in case you haven't watched a show that came out 8 years ago, it's on Netflix, you definitely should watch it, is that everybody else is a demon. Like, they're all demons in skin suits. And I think that is, I think, part of very like speculative way that we like scrutinize everyone around us instead of asking any questions about what's going on here, or that other people are also part of the system. And there might be demons in skin suits in our very real society. There are people who have actively chosen to uphold an institution where they have an advantage, but they also have thoughts and feelings. They might be demons and they might be intentionally doing everything that they do, but I guess they're also kind of punished. Like, everyone's miserable in this environment. It accidentally works on them, I guess. Um, but it is that sort of realization of like, it's not about us hiding that we are part of like the privileged class. It's that we are essentially continuing this institution, and we're essentially radioactive, poisoning and causing harm to everyone around us just by existing in it and continuing to like play along with the game. And that realization of like, oh, this is the bad place, is that moment where Michael breaks down and goes, oh, well, I guess the establishment that I set up doesn't work anymore. Like, I can't continue to torture you if you know. Um, and going through all of the iterations of that, like, yeah, they can just restart society over and over and over again, but the ultimate answer is that we need to remove the institutions that cause everyone harm. Michael hates this. um, I think kind of in a way like everyone hates it. um, and there's nothing you can do within that system to, like, even the demons can't, like, even Michael can't. um, and I think, though, being radioactive and constantly harming people by continuing to like exist in the system, kind of does more harm than good, and we can see an example of that in that like Reddit story. Whether it's true or not, there is some version of that which has some reality of like a straight man lying and saying, maybe not intentionally, but this fear of being kicked out of the protected class. He doesn't realize that he's causing harm ultimately to himself, because he's not being very honest with who he is and what he wants. And so, in doing so, a situation that could have been avoided by being very open and honest from the get go, um, and would have avoided a lot of pain and suffering for everyone involved, became a pretty bad situation for everyone, and led to the thing that he kind of feared the most, of like, oh